Farmer gives 3 plots of land to his sons, but the youngest did the unthinkable. Frank Miller looked out over the vast cornfields stretching as far as the eye could see, feeling the weight of his 65 years and the loneliness that had accompanied him since he lost his wife Margaret 3 years earlier. The decision to divide his land among his 3 children had been weighing on him during months of sleepless nights and lonely mornings. It was then that he called Jennifer, Richard, and Kevin for a conversation that would change the destiny of the entire family. The afternoon sun bathed the property in Columbus when he announced he would divide the land equally among them, but his surprise was immense when Kevin, the youngest at 25, raised his hand and said something nobody expected. "Dad, I don't want any land," declared Kevin, causing a heavy silence among the siblings. Jennifer, the eldest daughter at 32, a successful lawyer in the city, widened her eyes. Richard, 29, who had always worked on the farm alongside his father, was left speechless. Frank felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath his feet. "What do you mean, Kevin?" asked Jennifer, nervously adjusting a strand of her brown hair. "Do you know how much all this is worth?" "I know perfectly well, and that's exactly why I can't accept it," replied Kevin, keeping his gaze steady on his father. Richard stepped forward, visibly agitated. The blue shirt he was wearing was stained with dirt from the morning's work in the fields. "If he doesn't want it, there's more for us, right, Jennifer?" "We can split his share," he suggested, but there was something desperate in his voice. "Calm down, son," intervened Frank, taking the straw hat off his head and running his hand through his graying hair. "I need to understand what's happening here." Kevin took a deep breath before continuing. His gaze swept over the green fields he had known since childhood, where he had learned to love the land alongside his father. "Dad, you planned this division thinking of what's best for all of us, but I've discovered some things that could change everything. Before we divide anything, we need to talk about the future of this farm." Jennifer crossed her arms, showing impatience. She had driven 3 hours from New York, especially for this meeting, and wasn't willing to waste time on her younger brother's riddles. "What things, Kevin? Stop being so mysterious and just say it," she demanded. It was then that Richard spoke up in a way that shocked everyone. His hands were trembling slightly when he spoke. "Actually, I need to tell you all something too," he murmured, avoiding looking directly at his father. The wind rustled the corn leaves, creating a constant whisper that seemed to intensify the tension of the moment. Frank watched his children with growing concern, feeling that this conversation was heading in directions he had never imagined. "Richard, what happened?" asked the father, moving closer to his middle child. "Dad, I got into some financial complications," admitted Richard, finally raising his eyes. "I invested money in the stock market thinking I would multiply our income from the farm, but things went wrong, very wrong." Jennifer felt a pang in her stomach. As a lawyer, she knew how to recognize serious problems when she heard them. "How much did you lose, Richard?" she asked in a controlled voice. "I didn't just lose what I had. I borrowed money." "A lot of money," confessed Richard, the words coming out with difficulty. "I used the farm as collateral without telling anyone." The silence that followed was deafening. Frank had to lean against the trunk of a nearby tree, feeling his legs go weak. The farm his father had built, which he had expanded over decades of hard work, was at risk. Kevin approached his father, placing a hand on his shoulder. "That's why I can't accept my share, Dad. I cannot accept an inheritance that might be compromised," he explained gently. Jennifer began to understand the gravity of the situation. Her legal knowledge alerted her to the dangers that were approaching. "Richard, do you have any idea what you've done? How many people know about this?" she questioned, trying to maintain a professional calm. "The creditors, they've already been here twice. They said if I can't pay it off within a week, they'll seize the collateral," revealed Richard, his voice breaking. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It's a great help to us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. Frank needed to sit down on a fallen log. The reality weighed on him like a sudden storm. Margaret always said the family needed to stay united, but now it seemed like everything was falling apart. "How much is the debt?" asked Jennifer, already in professional mode. $300,000, murmured Richard. The number echoed between them like a clap of thunder. It was almost half the value of one of the farm's divisions, but with the interest and legal complications, it could cost much more. Kevin had remained silent, observing everyone's reaction. Finally, he decided to reveal what he had found out. "Dad, there's something else you all need to know. In the last few months, I've noticed strange changes in the vegetation on the north part of the property. The plants are greener, growing faster than normal," he began to explain. "And what does that have to do with our situation?" asked Jennifer impatiently. "I know a geologist from the university, Professor Watson. I asked him to take a discreet look at the property. What he discovered could change everything." Kevin made a dramatic pause. "Spit it out, son," asked Frank, hope shining in his tired eyes. "There's a gigantic underground aquifer beneath our land, a reservoir of pure water that's worth a fortune. Our property is worth at least 3 times more than we thought," revealed Kevin. The information landed like a bombshell. Jennifer stood up immediately, her legal mind processing the implications. Richard's eyes widened, glimpsing a possible solution to his problems. "Are you sure about this?" asked Jennifer. "I have all the reports right here." Kevin took an envelope from his jeans pocket. "But there's a problem. Some people already know about this." "What people?" questioned Frank, standing up with renewed energy. "A construction company has shown suspicious interest in buying land in the area. They've offered very low prices to several neighbors, as if they knew something the landowners didn't," explained Kevin. Jennifer felt a shiver run down her spine. Something about this story bothered her deeply. "What construction company?" she asked. "Pinnacle Construction. The owner is a man named Victor Reynolds," replied Kevin. The name hit Jennifer like a punch to the stomach. Victor Reynolds was the ex-husband of her cousin Pamela, with whom the family had a complicated relationship ever since a fight over an inheritance years ago. "It can't be a coincidence," murmured Jennifer, more to herself. "You know him?" asked Kevin, noticing his sister's reaction. "I do. And that means we've been manipulated for a long time," replied Jennifer, anger growing in her voice. Richard, still shaken by the revelation about the aquifer, asked, "What do you mean by that?" Jennifer began to pace back and forth, connecting dots in her mind. "Pamela always held a grudge against our family because of that inheritance from Aunt Elizabeth. If Victor is behind this, it means they have a plan to harm us," she explained. "But how did they find out about the aquifer before we did?" asked Frank. Kevin consulted his papers again. "According to Professor Watson, there were geological surveys in the area about a year ago. Someone commissioned studies on underground water resources, but the results were kept secret," he revealed. "And you think it was this construction company?" questioned Richard. "I'm almost certain. And the worst part is, they're probably trying to buy our land for a fraction of its real value," confirmed Kevin. Jennifer stopped walking abruptly. "My lord, they approached me last week," she said, putting her hand to her forehead. "What do you mean?" asked the 3 men in unison. "A representative from Pinnacle Construction scheduled a meeting with me at the office. Said they were interested in buying rural properties for a large sustainable development project. They offered an amount that seemed good at the time," confessed Jennifer. "Did you sign anything?" asked Kevin, worried. "Just a preliminary contract. But now I understand I was deceived." Jennifer felt betrayed and used. Frank shook his head, trying to process all that information. "So we're dealing with 2 situations, Richard's debt and this attempt to cheat us," he summarized. "Actually, Dad, I think the 2 situations might be connected," suggested Kevin. "How so?" asked Richard. "Think about it. When did you start betting on the stock market?" questioned Kevin. Richard thought for a moment. "About 6 months ago. A broker approached me offering investment opportunities, said he knew our farm and could help me multiply my earnings," he recalled. "And who was this broker?" asked Jennifer, already suspecting the answer. "A man named Bradley Pinnacle. Said he was the nephew of a construction company owner," replied Richard, the pieces finally falling into place. The silence that followed was filled with anger and indignation. The Miller family was being attacked on multiple fronts by people who knew their weaknesses. "They planned all this," said Jennifer, clenching her fists. "They used you to create a debt that would force us to sell the land, and they tried to use me to get legal access to the property." Kevin nodded gravely. "And now that we've discovered the aquifer, They must be desperate to finalize the contracts before we realize our land's true value, he added. Frank felt a mix of pride and worry. Pride for having a son as smart as Kevin, who uncovered the plan. Worry for the situation they were in. "What do we do now?" asked the patriarch. "First, I need to cancel this preliminary contract," said Jennifer with determination. "And I need to find a way to pay off my debt without selling the farm," added Richard, evident regret in his voice. "Maybe I have a solution for both problems," said Kevin, surprising everyone once again. "What solution?" asked the other three. Kevin looked at the fields around them, took a deep breath and began to explain his idea. "The aquifer we discovered doesn't just benefit our property. It extends across several farms in the region. If we can organize the neighbors, we can create an irrigation cooperative that will multiply everyone's production," he proposed. "And how does that solve our problems?" asked Jennifer. "A cooperative of that size would attract investments from rural development banks. We could get funding to modernize production and pay off Richard's debts. Plus, as majority partners in the cooperative, our monthly income would be much higher," explained Kevin. Richard began to see a ray of hope. "But will the neighbors want to participate? Do they trust us?" he questioned. "Mr. George from the neighboring farm has always been Dad's friend, Mrs. Dorothy too. If we present the project properly, I'm sure they'll be interested," replied Kevin. Jennifer, with her legal experience, began to see the possibilities. "We would need to structure solid contracts, define participation shares, create the cooperative statute," he listed. "Exactly, and you could be our lawyer, making sure everything is done correctly," suggested Kevin. Frank watched his children working together for the first time in years. Margaret would be proud. "And what if the neighbors don't accept?" he asked. "Then we'll work alone, but I'm sure when they see the numbers they'll want to participate," said Kevin confidently. "When do you plan to present this proposal?" asked Jennifer. "I've already scheduled a meeting for tomorrow night at the community school. I invited all the producers in the region," revealed Kevin. Richard was surprised. "You organized all of this already? When?" he asked. "Over the last 2 weeks. I knew the moment would come to tell you everything, so I was preparing," admitted Kevin. Jennifer felt a mix of admiration and suspicion. "Why did you do all this in secret?" she questioned. Kevin looked at the ground before answering. "Because I wanted to be sure it would work before raising your expectations. And also because—" He hesitated. "Because what?" insisted the father. "Because I always felt like the son who contributed the least to the farm. Jennifer is successful in the city. Richard always worked here with you, Lord. I just studied and did research. I wanted to prove that I can help our family too," confessed Kevin. Frank approached his youngest son and hugged him. "My son, you were always special. Your mother always said you had a gift for seeing opportunities where others see problems," he said with emotion. Jennifer also approached. "Kevin, I'm sorry for doubting you. It's clear you've thought of everything," she said, hugging her brother. Richard remained a little apart, still processing his guilt. "I ruined everything," he murmured. "Because of me, the farm is at risk." Kevin let go of his father's hug and addressed his middle brother. "Richard, everyone makes mistakes. The important thing is to learn from them and find solutions. You know this land better than any of us. Your practical experience will be fundamental to the cooperative's success," he said. "Do you really believe that?" asked Richard, his eyes welling up. "I'm sure. Without you, I would never have learned to operate the machinery, to understand the plant cycles, to know every inch of this land," affirmed Kevin. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing, the moment of unity was interrupted by the sound of a car approaching. It was a vehicle they didn't recognize, a black sedan with dark windows. "Who could that be?" asked Jennifer, instinctively assuming a defensive posture. "I don't know, but I don't like it," replied Frank, putting his straw hat back on his head. 2 men in suits got out of the car, clearly out of place in the rural setting. The taller one, with graying hair, addressed the group with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Good afternoon. Are you the Miller family?" he asked. "We are." "And you are?" replied Frank, maintaining a cautious tone. "My name is Victor Reynolds, from Pinnacle Construction." "This is my most generous business proposal for your property," he said, extending an envelope. Jennifer felt her blood run cold. Pamela's ex-husband was there in person at the family's most vulnerable moment. "We are not interested in selling," Jennifer stated firmly. Victor smiled condescendingly. "Dr. Jennifer, that's not what I'm told. I have information that the family is experiencing some financial difficulties," he said, looking directly at Richard. "What information?" asked Kevin, stepping forward. "Well, when someone uses a farm as collateral for risky loans, the news spreads quickly on the stock market," revealed Victor maliciously. Richard felt his face burn with shame. Frank clenched his fists, controlling his anger. "I suppose you are here to take advantage of the situation," said the patriarch. "On the contrary, Mr. Frank, I am here to offer a solution. I can pay off all the family's debts and still pay a fair price for the property," proposed Victor. "And what would that fair price be?" asked Jennifer, crossing her arms. Victor opened the envelope and showed a document. $800,000, paid in cash, more than enough to pay off the debts and still leave some for you to start over somewhere else, he offered. Kevin almost laughed at the ridiculous proposal. $800,000. "You must be joking with us," he said. "Young man, you are in no position to negotiate. In a week, the creditors will foreclose on the collateral and you will lose everything without receiving a cent," threatened Victor. Jennifer stepped forward, assuming her lawyer's posture. "Mr. Victor, first, my brother could not have used the farm as collateral without the consent of all the owners. Second, your offer is paltry considering the property's real value. Third, I know exactly who you are and what your motivations are," she declared. Victor lost a bit of his composure. "What do you mean, counselor?" he asked. "You are my cousin Pamela's ex-husband. You've known our family for years. You know this land is worth far more than your offer. And I'm certain you orchestrated this entire situation," accused Jennifer. "Those are just assumptions, counselor. Business is business," defended Victor. "Business based on insider information and manipulation is considered fraudulent," Jennifer countered. Kevin decided to reveal his trump card. "Mr. Victor, I suppose you have some knowledge about underground water resources, don't you?" he asked. The businessman hesitated for a moment, which was enough to confirm the family's suspicions. "I don't know what you're talking about," lied Victor. "I have geological reports here that prove the existence of a valuable aquifer on our property." "I'm sure you have these same reports," said Kevin, showing the documents. Victor tried to maintain his composure, but it was clear he had been found out. "How did you get this data?" he asked, inadvertently revealing that he knew the information. "Ah, so you did know," said Jennifer, smiling triumphantly. "This proves your offer is fraudulent. Furthermore," Kevin continued, "we have already organized a cooperative with the neighbors. Our lawyer will challenge all the suspicious contracts that were made in the area in the last year." Victor realized his strategy had been uncovered. His tone changed to a more aggressive one. "You don't know who you're dealing with. I have signed contracts, valid collateral. I can make your lives very complicated," he threatened. Frank, who had remained silent, finally spoke. "Mr. Victor, this land has belonged to my family for 3 generations. My grandfather bought it with the sweat of his brow. My father expanded it with dedication. I have maintained it with love, and my children will continue this legacy. No threat will make us give up," he declared firmly. "Furthermore," added Jennifer, "I will file a lawsuit challenging all your business dealings in the region. I'm sure we will find several irregularities." Victor realized he had lost control of the situation. He angrily put the documents away. "You will regret this decision. In a week, when the creditors arrive, we'll see if all this courage still exists," he said, heading for the car. "We'll be here waiting," Kevin replied calmly. After the men left, the family remained silent for a few moments, processing the confrontation. "Well, now we have no more doubts about their intentions," said Jennifer. "That means tomorrow's meeting is even more important," observed Kevin. "Do you think the neighbors will support us after they find out about Richard's debts?" asked Frank, worried. "Dad, if we are honest about our situation and show how everyone can benefit, I'm sure they will understand," replied Kevin. Richard, who had remained quiet during the entire conversation with Victor, finally spoke up. "I will tell the neighbors everything. I will admit my mistakes publicly. It's the least I can do," he declared. "You don't need to expose yourself like that, brother," said Jennifer. "Yes, I do. For years I criticized Kevin for only studying and not helping on the farm. Now I see he was preparing for this moment. It's time for me to take responsibility too," Richard stated with conviction. Kevin put his hand on his brother's shoulder. "Richard, we will all take on our responsibilities. Jennifer with the legal part, you with the farm's operations, me with the technical planning, and Dad with the wisdom and experience," he said. "And if we can't convince the neighbors," asked Frank, "then we'll work alone. With the aquifer, our production will triple even without the cooperative. It will be harder, but we will manage," Kevin assured. Jennifer checked her watch. "I need to go back to the city today to cancel that pre-contract and prepare the documents for the cooperative," she said. "Can you do that? Cancel the contract without penalties?" asked Richard. "Considering I was misled about the property's true value, I'm sure I can void the contract due to fraudulent misrepresentation," explained Jennifer. "What about Richard's creditors?" asked Frank. "I will try to negotiate a longer term. If we can form the cooperative quickly, we can use that as collateral for refinancing," suggested Jennifer. Kevin opened his papers again. "According to my calculations, with the cooperative running, our monthly income will increase by at least 400%. In 6 months, we will be able to pay off the entire debt," he projected. "Are you sure about those numbers?" asked Richard hopefully. "Yes. I spent months running different simulations. The aquifer is our advantage, but the cooperative is what will maximize the gains," confirmed Kevin. The sun began to set on the horizon, painting the sky with orange hues. The Miller family walked back to the house, each lost in their own thoughts about the challenges they would face. "Children," said Frank, stopping on the porch, "I want you to know that I am very proud of all of you today." "Why, Dad?" asked Jennifer. "Because today you proved you are a true family. When you discovered Richard's problem, instead of condemning him, you looked for solutions. When you faced Victor's threats, you came together to defend our land. This is what your mother always wanted for you," explained Frank, his voice choked with emotion. Richard wiped a tear from his face. "Dad, I promise I will make up for my mistakes. I will work day and night so our cooperative is a success," he declared. "We will all work together," corrected Kevin. "For the first time in our lives, we have a common goal." Jennifer smiled, feeling something she hadn't felt in years, the feeling of truly belonging to that family. "You know what? I think I'm going to transfer my office here. Columbus needs more lawyers specialized in agricultural law," she announced. "Really?" asked the 3 men in unison. "Really. This farm is my home. It's time for me to come back home," confirmed Jennifer. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like the video and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It's a tremendous help for us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. That evening, the family had dinner together for the first time in months. Frank prepared his famous cornbread, while Jennifer made a salad and Richard grilled some meat in the backyard. Kevin organized the cooperative's documents on the kitchen table. "Tomorrow will be a decisive day," commented Frank, helping himself to some cornbread. "I'm nervous," admitted Richard. "What if the neighbors don't trust me after we tell them about the debts?" "Richard, Mr. George has known you since you were a child. Mrs. Dorothy watched you grow up. They know you're a good person who made a mistake," reassured Kevin. "Besides," added Jennifer, "we're going to present a solid proposal. We're not asking for charity. We're offering a business opportunity." Frank watched his children talking and planning together. Margaret always said that the greatest blessings come disguised as challenges. "Dad, what would Mom say about this whole situation?" asked Kevin. Frank smiled, remembering his wife. "She would say that you're finally acting like the siblings she always dreamed you would be," he replied. "Would she be angry with me for putting the farm at risk?" asked Richard guiltily. "She would be sad but not angry. She always said that mistakes are opportunities for growth in disguise," comforted Frank. Jennifer got up and went to a kitchen drawer from which she took out a yellowed letter. "I found this among Mum's things after she passed. I never had the courage to read it," she said, handing the letter to her father. Frank immediately recognized Margaret's handwriting. With trembling hands, he opened the envelope. "May I read it to you?" he asked. "Of course, Dad," his children replied. Frank began to read. "My darlings, if you are reading this letter, it means I have already gone to be with the Lord. Do not be sad for me, for I know I fulfilled my mission on this earth, to raise 3 wonderful children alongside the love of my life. Jennifer, my dear daughter, you have always been my warrior. I know you sometimes feel distant from the family living in the city, but I want you to know you've always had a rural heart. Never forget your roots. Richard, my hard-working son. Your love for this land is equal to your father's. Sometimes your desire to grow quickly may lead you down difficult paths, but I trust you will always find your way back home. Kevin, my studious boy, you have a special gift for seeing solutions where others see problems. Never let anyone tell you that studying isn't working. Knowledge is the most powerful tool there is. Frank, love of my life, thank you for giving me the most beautiful family in the world. Take good care of our children, and never forget that they need each other. And to you 3, my children, always remember that you are siblings. In difficult times, support each other. In times of joy, share them. This land we love will only have value if you are united in caring for it. With all my love, Margaret." Silence fell over the kitchen. The 4 of them cried quietly, each processing Margaret's words in their own way. "It's as if she knew this moment would come," murmured Jennifer. "She was always wise," said Frank, carefully folding the letter. "Dad, can I ask you a question?" said Kevin, hesitantly. "Of course, my son." "Why did you never remarry? You must have felt very lonely," asked Kevin. Frank smiled sadly. "Because some loves are unique, my son. Your mother was the love of my life. Besides, I had you 3 to take care of. That gave me purpose enough," he explained. "And now, with us all grown up," insisted Jennifer. "Now I have the cooperative to take care of," joked Frank, drawing laughter from his children. The rest of the night passed quickly. Jennifer took the opportunity to review contracts on the laptop. Kevin organized financial spreadsheets, and Richard prepared detailed maps of the property for the next day's presentation. Frank sat on the porch, watching the stars. Margaret used to say that each star was a blessing that the Lord sent to earth. That night, he counted many stars. The next day, activity on the farm started early. Jennifer had returned from New York before dawn, bringing cancelled documents and cooperative contracts ready for signing. "Did you manage to cancel the pre-contract?" asked Kevin, meeting his sister in the kitchen. "I did, and the best part, Victor was furious when he found out. He tried to threaten me with lawsuits, but when I mentioned the word fraud, he quickly changed his tune," Jennifer recounted, pleased. Richard appeared in the kitchen with his clothes dirty from soil. "I finished preparing the meeting area. I put benches under the backyard trees and tested the sound system," he informed. "Perfect," said Kevin. "What time did we schedule it for?" 7 in the evening, after dinner, when everyone is free," replied Richard. Frank came down the stairs wearing his best dress shirt, the same one he wore to Sunday services. "Dad, you look very elegant," complimented Jennifer. "Today is an important day, my dear. I want to make a good impression on the neighbors," Frank explained. During the day, the family received some unexpected visits. Mr. George showed up around 2 in the afternoon, under the pretext of borrowing a tool, but clearly curious about the meeting. "Frank, I heard you're going to propose some kind of cooperative," said the 68-year-old neighbor. "It's true, George. An opportunity that could benefit all of us," confirmed Frank. "What kind of opportunity?" asked Mr. George, adjusting his straw hat. "I'd better let my son Kevin explain it properly tonight. He understands numbers better than I do," said Frank. Mr. George observed Kevin, who was organizing papers on the porch. "The boy was always studious. Your Margaret would be proud," commented the neighbor. "She would be," Frank agreed, smiling. Around 4 in the afternoon, it was Mrs. Dorothy's turn to appear, accompanied by her 40-year-old daughter, Caroline. "Good afternoon, Miller family," greeted Mrs. Dorothy, a 72-year-old lady with white hair always neatly arranged. "Mrs. Dorothy, what a joy to receive you," said Jennifer, hugging the neighbor who had known her since she was a child. "Jennifer, I heard you're back to stay. How wonderful. The community needs educated people like you," praised Mrs. Dorothy. "Thank you, Mrs. Dorothy. I'm very happy to be back, replied Jennifer. Caroline took the opportunity to talk to Richard. Richard, I heard some comments in town about you all going through difficulties. Is it true? She asked discreetly. Richard took a deep breath before answering. He had decided to be honest. It's true, Caroline. I made some financial mistakes that put our property at risk, but we are working to fix it, he admitted. If you need anything, you can count on us, offered Caroline, demonstrating the solidarity typical of rural communities. Thank you. Actually, tonight we're going to present a proposal that could help all of us, said Richard. Around 6 o'clock, other families began to arrive. The Miller farm turned into a community gathering point. Kevin had prepared coffee, and Jennifer had arranged some treats she bought in town. The families present represented 8 rural properties in the region: the Andersons, the Bakers, the Petersons, the Thompsons, the Johnsons, the Smiths, the Newmans, and the Millers themselves. At 7 o'clock sharp, Frank stood up and asked for everyone's attention. Friends, thank you for being here tonight. We've been neighbors for decades. Our children grew up together. We've shared joys and sorrows. Today we want to share an opportunity that could change the future for all of our families, Frank began. But before anything else, he continued, my son Richard has something important to say. Richard stood up, nervous but determined. Friends, you've known me since I was a child. You know I've always been hard-working and honest. That's why I need to tell you that I made a serious mistake that has put our farm at risk, he said, his voice firm despite his nervousness. A murmur went through the group. Richard continued, over the last few months, I was deceived by unscrupulous people who led me to make risky investments. I lost money and incurred debts using our property as collateral. I take full responsibility for my mistakes, he confessed. Mr. George was the first to speak up. Richard, we've all made mistakes. The important thing is to have the courage to admit them and look for solutions, he said, standing up to shake the young man's hand. It's true, agreed Mrs. Dorothy. Your family has always been honest with us. If you're asking for our help, it's because you truly need it. The support from the neighbors moved Richard, who was able to continue with more confidence. Now my brother Kevin will explain how we discovered an opportunity that can solve our problems and benefit all of you as well, he said. Kevin stood up, carrying a briefcase with documents and a map of the region. Friends, over the last few months I've been conducting research on water resources in our area. What I discovered could change everything, he began, spreading the map on the floor so everyone could see. This map shows the location of an underground aquifer that extends beneath all of our properties. It's a gigantic reservoir of pure water, Kevin explained, pointing to the markings on the map. John Baker, who owns a cattle ranch, spoke up. What does that mean in practical terms, Kevin? He asked. It means we have access to enough water for intensive irrigation all year round. Our production could triple, Kevin replied. But that must cost a fortune, observed Mary Thompson, owner of a coffee farm. Individually, yes, but by working together we can share the costs and maximize our gains, Kevin explained. Jennifer stood up to add the legal explanation. The proposal is to form a cooperative where each family maintains ownership of their land, but we share resources for irrigation, machinery, and marketing, she said. How would that work in practice? Asked Peter Johnson. Each property would contribute a percentage of the costs proportional to the size of their land. In return, everyone would have access to the irrigation system, shared machinery and marketing channels, Jennifer explained. Kevin showed spreadsheets with financial projections. According to my calculations, the initial investment would be recovered in 18 months. After that, each family's income would increase by an average of 300%, he projected. The number impressed everyone. Mrs. Dorothy was the first to ask a practical question. And who would guarantee that everything would be done correctly? Who would manage the cooperative? She asked. We would elect a board from among ourselves. Jennifer could be our lawyer, making sure all contracts are fair. Richard could coordinate the farming operations since he knows the area well. And I could handle the technical side and the planning, Kevin suggested. And what about Frank? Asked Mr. George. I would be the advisor. I'm already the oldest one here. I can offer experience and wisdom, said Frank, drawing laughter from the group. Caroline raised an important point. "What if a family wants to leave the cooperative later on?" she asked. "The cooperative's bylaws provide for that. Any member can leave, taking their proportional share of the investments. But I believe that when everyone sees the results, no one will want to leave," replied Jennifer. Joseph Smith, who had remained silent, finally spoke up. "Kevin, are you absolutely sure about this aquifer? We don't want to invest our money in something uncertain," he said. Kevin opened his briefcase and showed the geological reports. "I have reports from 3 different experts confirming the existence and the quality of the water. Furthermore, we've already identified the most strategic points for drilling the wells," he assured. "May I see those reports?" asked Joseph. Of course. Kevin handed the documents over for his neighbor to examine. While Joseph was analyzing the papers, Mrs. Dorothy asked another question. "And what about the initial costs? How much would each family need to invest?" she questioned. Jennifer consulted her notes. Considering 8 properties, the initial investment would be approximately $15,000 per family, depending on the size of the property, she informed. A murmur went through the group. It was a significant amount for farmers. "15,000 is a lot of money," observed Mary Thompson. "That's true," agreed Kevin, "but there are specific credit lines for agricultural cooperatives. We can finance the initial investment and pay it back with the production itself." "Have you already looked into these credit lines?" asked John Baker. "Yes, I already have pre-approval from 2 banks for financing up to 80% of the total value," confirmed Kevin. Joseph Smith finished examining the reports and spoke up. "The documents look serious. But I still have one concern. How do we know this isn't just a young dreamer's idea?" he asked without malice, but with the typical prudence of someone who has worked the land for decades. Frank stood up to answer. "Joseph, I've known my son for 25 years. He has always been careful and responsible. Besides, Jennifer is an experienced lawyer, and Richard knows this land like few others. We are not asking you to trust just Kevin, but the Miller family as a whole," he declared. "Furthermore," added Kevin, "I am willing to start a pilot project on our own property. If it works, you can see the results before fully committing." The pilot project proposal interested everyone. "How would this pilot project work?" asked Peter Johnson. "We would drill the first well on our land, install a basic irrigation system, and monitor the results for 3 months. You could follow the entire process," explained Kevin. "And if it doesn't work?" asked Mary Thompson. "If it doesn't work, we bear the entire loss ourselves. You lose nothing, guaranteed, Richard." "And if it works?" asked Mr. George. "If it works, we form the official cooperative and expand the system to all properties," answered Kevin. The group began talking among themselves, debating the proposal. Frank watched anxiously, knowing his family's future depended on that decision. After a few minutes of discussion, Mrs. Dorothy stood up. "Miller family, you've known us for decades. You know we are practical people. We need to talk with our families before making a final decision. But I can speak for everyone here. We are interested in the proposal," she declared. "How much time do you need to decide?" asked Jennifer. "1 week would be enough," replied John Baker. "Perfect," said Kevin. "In the meantime, we will start drilling the pilot well. In 1 week, you'll be able to see the practical result." "And what about Richard's debts?" asked Joseph Smith. "Could that affect the cooperative?" Jennifer answered with legal confidence. "No, the debts are Richard's personal liabilities, not the property itself. The cooperative would be a separate legal entity, protected from the personal problems of its members," she explained. "Besides," added Kevin, "if the cooperative works as we hope, Richard will be able to pay off his debts in a few months." Mr. George stood up and extended his hand to Frank. "Frank, your family has always been honest and hard-working. If you believe in this idea, I believe in it too. You can count on me," he declared. One by one, the other neighbors expressed their support for the pilot project. By the end of the meeting, everyone had agreed to wait for the test results before making a final decision. After the neighbors left, the Miller family gathered on the porch to assess the evening. "I think it worked," said Jennifer, relieved. "They were more receptive than I expected," admitted Richard. "Now comes the hard part, making the pilot project work," observed Kevin. Frank smiled, looking at his 3 children. "Do you know how proud I am of you?" he said. "Why, Dad?" asked Jennifer. "Because today you showed you can work as a team." Kevin with the ideas, Jennifer with the legal knowledge, Richard with the practical experience. "And all of you together, supporting each other," explained Frank. "So now, when do we start drilling?" asked Richard. "Tomorrow. I already have a contract with a drilling company. They can start on Monday," informed Kevin. "And the money for the pilot project?" asked Jennifer. "I have an emergency fund I've saved for years. It's enough for the initial project," revealed Frank. "Dad, you can't spend your savings because of us," protested Richard. "Richard, this isn't an expense. It's an investment in our family's future. That's what I've saved this money for all these years," explained Frank. Kevin hugged his father, moved. "Thank you for trusting me, Dad," he said. "My son, you spent months secretly planning this, studying, researching, organizing everything. If that's not dedication to family, I don't know what is," replied Frank. Jennifer also joined the hug. "This time, we're going to make it, I'm sure," she said with conviction. "All together," added Richard, joining the family hug. That night, for the first time in months, everyone slept peacefully. The future was still uncertain, but now they had a solid plan and, more importantly, they were united to face it. On Monday morning, the drilling company arrived punctually. Kevin had chosen the location based on geological studies at the most promising point on the property. "Mr. Kevin, according to your specifications, we will drill up to 50 meters deep," informed the site supervisor. "That's right. The studies indicate we will find quality water between 40 and 50 meters," confirmed Kevin. Richard watched everything with interest, asking technical questions and learning about the process. Jennifer took the opportunity to photograph and document each stage, thinking of using the images for future presentations. Frank watched from a distance, remembering when he drilled his first artesian well decades ago. The technology had evolved a lot, but the thrill of seeking water from the land remained the same. On the second day of drilling, they received an unexpected visit. Victor Reynolds appeared again, this time accompanied by a lawyer. "Miller family, I've come here to make one final offer," announced Victor. "We have no interest in hearing your offers," replied Jennifer coldly. "I think you'll be interested in this one. I'm prepared to double my previous offer. $1,600,000 for the property," offered Victor. The amount was truly tempting. It would be more than enough to pay off all the debts and still leave money for the family to start over. "Why did you double the offer?" asked Kevin, suspicious. "Let's just say I recognize the property's true value," replied Victor evasively. "And if we refuse?" asked Frank. The lawyer accompanying Victor spoke up. "Lord Frank, my client is prepared to use all available legal resources to enforce the guarantees for your son Richard's debts," he threatened. Jennifer stepped forward, adopting her professional posture. "Doctor, I suggest you examine the documentation more carefully before making threats. My brother did not have the authority to use the property as collateral without the consent of all owners," she countered. "We have signed documents," insisted the lawyer. "Documents obtained fraudulently. I have evidence that your clients deliberately manipulated my brother," accused Jennifer. Victor realized Jennifer was not bluffing. "Dr. Jennifer, there's no need for hostility between us. My offer is genuine and generous," he tried to soften the tone. "Your offer is still far below the property's true value," replied Kevin firmly. "And how do you know what the true value is?" asked Victor, pretending not to know. "The same way you do," said Kevin, showing the geological reports. "With serious, professional studies." Victor tried to hide it, but he was clearly surprised to see the family had access to the same data he did. "I see you've done your own research," he observed. "Exactly. And we've discovered our property is worth at least 3 times your offer, even if doubled," stated Kevin. Victor's lawyer tried one last gambit. "Gentlemen, having documents about water resources is one thing. Profitably exploiting those resources is quite another. Do you have investment capital, technical knowledge, commercial infrastructure?" he questioned. "We have all that and more," Jennifer replied confidently. "We have a cooperative with 8 families from the region, all interested in working together." The information about the cooperative clearly bothered Victor. He had planned to buy the properties individually, isolating each family. A unified cooperative complicated his plans significantly. A cooperative, interesting, murmured Victor. But rural cooperatives have a high failure rate. Aren't you being overly optimistic? Mr. Victor, Frank intervened, this land has belonged to my family for 3 generations. We've known our neighbors for decades. If anyone can make a cooperative work, it's us. Furthermore, added Richard, we'd rather try and fail as owners of our land than succeed as someone else's employees. The family's firmness was clearly frustrating Victor. He tried one last approach. What if I offered a partnership instead of a purchase? You could keep the property, and I would come in as an investor, he proposed. At what percentage? Asked Jennifer, legally curious. I would invest all the capital needed to exploit the aquifer in exchange for 70% of the profits, offered Victor. Kevin almost laughed at the absurd proposal. 70%? For you who don't know the land, have no rural experience, and on top of that tried to cheat us, he questioned. My business experience is very valuable, Victor defended himself. Your experience in trying to defraud rural families, certainly, Jennifer shot back. Victor's lawyer tried to end the conversation threateningly. Gentlemen, my client has made more than generous offers. If you insist on refusing, prepare for the legal consequences, he threatened. Doctor, Jennifer replied calmly, I suggest you prepare your clients for the consequences of trying to defraud a lawyer who specializes in agricultural law. I have all the necessary elements for lawsuits for fraud, attempted fraud and coercion. Victor realized he had completely lost control of the situation. He signaled to the lawyer, and the two headed for the car. You will regret this decision, Victor said before leaving. We already do, shouted Kevin. We regret having wasted our time with you. After the unwanted visitors left, the family returned to monitor the drilling. By late afternoon, the workers announced they had found water. Mr. Kevin, we have excellent quality water at a depth of 42 meters, the supervisor informed, with a smile on his face. Is the flow rate within expectations? Kevin asked anxiously. Better than expected. We estimate 15,000 liters per hour, the supervisor replied. The family celebrated discreetly. It was the first concrete sign that the plan could work. When can we install the irrigation system? Richard asked. The team can start tomorrow. In 3 days you'll have a basic system up and running, the supervisor informed. That night the family dined in an atmosphere of renewed hope. The discovery of water had given everyone more confidence. Father, how do you feel? Jennifer asked. I feel as if your mother were here with us, guiding every step, Frank replied, moved. Do you think she would approve of our decisions? Kevin asked. I'm sure. Margaret always said the land takes care of those who take care of it. You are honoring that philosophy, Frank affirmed. Richard, who had remained thoughtful during dinner, finally spoke up. Family, I want to apologize once again for having put us all in this situation, he said. Richard, we've already talked about this. Mistakes happen. What's important is how we react to them, Jennifer replied. It's true, Kevin agreed. If you hadn't made that mistake, perhaps we would never have discovered the aquifer. Sometimes things happen for a reason. Do you really think we'll be able to form the cooperative? Richard asked. After today, I'm sure. The neighbors saw our determination. They saw we have a serious plan. And now we have water to show, Kevin replied. When should we hold the next meeting? Jennifer asked. Friday, that gives us time to have the basic irrigation system running, Kevin suggested. During the rest of the week, the Miller farm turned into a construction site. The installation of the irrigation system attracted the curiosity of the neighbors, who stopped by daily to check on the progress. Mr. George appeared on Thursday, impressed by what he saw. Frank, in 50 years of working the land, I've never seen an irrigation system installed so quickly, he commented. It's because Kevin studied everything just right. He knew exactly what he wanted, Frank explained with pride. And does it really work? Mr. George asked. Kevin, who was supervising the work, approached. Would you like to see, Mr. George? He offered, turning the system on. Immediately, jets of water began irrigating a test area of the crop. The pressure was perfect, the distribution even. Impressive, murmured Mr. George. With this water, the yield really could triple. And this is just the basic system, Kevin explained. With the cooperative, we can install even more advanced technology. Kevin, I can already tell you that my family is decided. We want to join the cooperative, Mr. George announced. The news filled Kevin with joy. Really, Mr. George? He asked. Really. We talked last night. If the Miller family trusts the project, we trust it too, the neighbor confirmed. On Friday evening, the second meeting had a completely different atmosphere from the first. The families arrived excited, having seen the practical results of the pilot project. Friends, Frank began, you were able to follow the installation of our irrigation system during the week. Now we want to show you the first results. Kevin presented photographs and data from the last 3 days. In just 3 days of controlled irrigation, we noticed a 40% faster growth rate in the plants in the test area. The quality of the corn has also visibly improved, he informed. And the costs? Asked Mary Thompson. The energy consumption for irrigation was lower than expected, and the water cost is practically zero since it comes from our own aquifer, answered Kevin. Mrs. Dorothy spoke on behalf of her family. Kevin, your presentation was very convincing. My family has decided to join the cooperative, she announced. One by one, the other neighbors expressed their decision to join. By the end of the meeting, all 8 families had officially joined the cooperative. Now we need to define the next steps, said Jennifer, taking on the legal coordination. First, we'll officially register the cooperative, she suggested. Second, we'll apply for the collective funding to expand the system, added Kevin. Third, we'll define the schedule for drilling wells on the other properties, completed Richard. John Baker raised a practical question. And what about Richard's creditors? Won't they cause problems for the cooperative? He asked. Jennifer answered confidently. I've already contacted the creditors. I presented our cooperative business plan and managed to renegotiate the debt term. They agreed to wait 6 months for the first payments, she informed. And if we still can't pay? Asked Joseph Smith. We will, said Kevin with conviction. Our projections are conservative. In fact, I believe we'll pay everything off in 4 months, not 6. Kevin's confidence spread through the group. Peter Johnson spoke up. Kevin, we want to appoint you as the technical director of the cooperative, he proposed. And Jennifer as our official lawyer, added Mrs. Dorothy. And Richard as operations coordinator, completed Mr. George. And Mr. Frank as chairman of the advisory board, finished Mary Thompson. The Miller family was moved by the neighbors' show of confidence. We accept, said Frank on behalf of the family, but on one condition. Any important decision will be made in an assembly with everyone participating. We agree, they all said in unison. After the meeting, the families dispersed to their homes, but the mood was celebratory. The cooperative was finally, officially formed. We did it, said Jennifer, hugging her brothers. Not yet, corrected Kevin. We managed to form the cooperative. Now we need to make it work. We will, stated Richard. For the first time in months, I feel we have control over our destiny. Frank watched his children with immense pride. Margaret would have been overjoyed to see the family united like that. Dad, what are you thinking about? Asked Jennifer. I'm thinking that you 3 have become exactly what your mother always dreamed of. True siblings, answered Frank. The next few months passed quickly. The cooperative performed better than any projection. The irrigation system was expanded to all properties. Production increased significantly, and the collective marketing channels secured better prices for everyone. Richard managed to pay off his debts in 3.5 months, surpassing even Kevin's optimistic projections. Jennifer permanently moved her office to Columbus and specialized in agricultural cooperative law. Kevin received several job offers from large agribusiness companies, but he declined them all. His mission was there, with his family and the land he loved. The cooperative became a model in the region, attracting visits from students and other producers interested in replicating the project. But the biggest transformation happened within the Miller family itself. Frank, who had spent 3 lonely years after Margaret's passing, now felt useful and happy again, guiding not only his children but the entire community. 1 year after the cooperative's formation, on a Sunday afternoon, the family gathered on the porch for a special lunch. It was the anniversary of Margaret's passing, but for the first time it wasn't a day of sadness. "Dad, I think Mum would be proud of what we've built," said Jennifer. "She would," agreed Frank. "But do you know what she would be most proud of?" "What?" asked the three children. "Of seeing you three taking care of each other. That was always her dream," replied Frank. Kevin got up and went to his father's room, returning with Margaret's letter. "Can I read a part again?" he asked. "Of course," everyone replied. Kevin opened the letter and read, "To you three, my children, always remember that you are siblings. In difficult times, support each other. In times of joy, share them. This land we love will only have value if you are united in caring for it." "I think we managed to honor her request," said Richard, moved. "More than that," said Jennifer. "We managed to teach the same lesson to our whole community." Frank smiled, looking at the green fields stretching to the horizon. The afternoon sun created a special golden glow on the crop, watered by the aquifer Kevin had discovered. "You know something?" said Frank. "I think our story is just beginning." "How so, Dad?" asked Kevin. "Other communities are asking for help to form similar cooperatives. You created something bigger than a simple solution to our problems. You created a model for how rural families can work together," explained Frank. "And would you like us to help other communities?" asked Jennifer. "I would, but only if you want to. Our priority will always be our own family and our own cooperative," Frank assured. Kevin looked at his siblings and smiled. "Dad, I think Kevin, Jennifer, and Richard of the Miller Cooperative has a nice ring to it, don't you think?" he joked. "Miller and Associates Cooperative," corrected Jennifer, always thinking legally. "Miller and Sons Cooperative," suggested Richard. "Miller Family Cooperative," said Frank, "because family includes all of you and all our neighbors who have become part of our story." That afternoon stretched into the evening, with the family planning new projects and remembering the challenges they had overcome. When the stars appeared in the sky, Frank counted many of them, just as Margaret used to do. "Dad," said Kevin, watching the stars, "I have a confession to make." "What is it?" asked Frank. "Actually, I never wanted to refuse my share of the inheritance. I said that because I already knew about the aquifer and knew that you were facing difficulties. I wanted to force a situation where we all had to work together," confessed Kevin. Jennifer and Richard looked surprised at their younger brother. "You planned all this from the start?" asked Richard. "Not exactly everything. But when I discovered the aquifer and found out about Richard's debts, I realized we had a unique opportunity to unite the family and solve all our problems at the same time," explained Kevin. "That's why you already had everything organized for the meeting with the neighbors," observed Jennifer. "Exactly. I knew that if I could get you to work together just once, you would discover that we are stronger united," admitted Kevin. Frank hugged his youngest son. "My son, you didn't just save our farm, you saved our family," he said emotionally. "We saved our family, Dad. Together," corrected Kevin. And so, under the starry sky of Columbus, the Miller family celebrated not only overcoming their difficulties, but also the discovery that the real treasure wasn't in the underground aquifer, but in the unity they had built. The cooperative prospered beyond all expectations, becoming a national reference in sustainable agriculture. But for the Miller family, the greatest success would always be the fact that, for the first time in years, they were truly a united family. Richard completely overcame his gambling problems and became an exemplary farm manager. Jennifer specialized in cooperative law and helped form dozens of cooperatives across the country. Kevin became a water resources consultant, but he never left the family farm. And Frank continued to be the wise patriarch that Margaret had always wanted him to be, working the land he loved alongside the children who honored him every day. 5 years later, when the cooperative had already become a national model, Kevin made his final revelation. He had documented the entire transformation of the family and the community, creating a family cooperative handbook to ensure the knowledge would be passed on to future generations. The handbook was published and distributed free of charge to rural communities across the country, bringing the Miller family's story to thousands of other families facing similar challenges. In the handbook's preface, Kevin wrote, "This story proves that the greatest riches are not hidden underground, but in the human relationships we build with love, dedication, and teamwork." And so, what began as a family crisis turned into a life lesson that inspired an entire generation of farmers to believe in the power of family and community unity. End of story. And what about you, dear listener? What did you think of this Miller family story? Do you believe Kevin made the right decision by forcing the family to come together? Have you ever experienced situations where challenges turned into opportunities? Share your experiences in the comments and tell us where you're watching from. And don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other heartwarming stories that touch the heart.